Black like me. Black like me. Black like me.
You're listening to Black Like Me with Dr. Alex G., a podcast that invites you to experience the world through the perspective of one black man, one conversation, one story, or even one rant at a time. Here's Dr. G.
Are we recording right now? Is that on here? Are we actually recording? I love it.
This is gonna be
I
on the
love
front.
it. This is. No, I love keeping these things. They're going to make sure that goes in, too. Servant's quarter. Hey. Oh, Hey, good people. Welcome back to another exciting episode of Black Like Me with Dr. Alex G. Now, you might be able to hear it in my voice. I'm already laughing because I'm here with my crew, and they're trying to throw me a curveball. But no, it is all good. Listen, I'm so excited about season 8 and the format that we're taking, about passing the mic. This season is really about exploring my experiences of leadership. And as I told you before, I have different guests coming in, folks who in their own rights are established leaders, who are in the studios asking me questions about my leadership. It's helping me to chronicle my leadership, to reflect on my leadership styles, to look at what I've done well, what I've not done so well. But the result is that I really want to be able to look back after 30 years as the founding CEO of Nehemiah, 35 years as the senior pastor of Fountain of Life, the founder of the Center for Black Excellence in Culture, and of course the founding podcast host of Black Like Me. I want to reflect on things that have influenced our work, and I want to be able to synthesize it in a way that those who come behind me or work with me can learn from those leadership strategies. So I'm really excited. We haven't done anything like this before in our previous seasons, and it's really nice being in the guest seat. It's sort of daunting at first. I still get a little nervous because I don't know what people are going to do when they have the powerful Black Like Me mic, but we shall see. My guest today is no stranger to Black Like Me podcast studios. He is none other than Dr. Tony Chambers, Dr. Anthony Chambers, but he's given me permission just to call him Tony. But you all need to call him Dr. Chambers. He works for the Center for Healthy Minds here in Madison, Wisconsin, and he is the director for community well-being. He also works very closely with me on my brand new project, the Center for Black Excellence in Culture, as the director of Black Wellness Strategy. And so I'm going to be turning over the mic to this gentleman in just a bit. But he appeared on my podcast a few years ago. We'll put a link in the notes so that you all can listen to that episode. It was so interesting as a professor coming here from Toronto, working in Madison, and just talking about some of the run-ins he had with race and racism. But so take a listen to that older episode, because it'll give you greater insight into who he is. But I'm going to ask him a few Black icebreaker questions, because we can't let him come to the studio and not do that. But first of all, Tony, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Alex. Thanks for having me today. I'm looking forward to this.
I bet you are. I'm glad.
I'm looking forward to it.
Listen, so I got a couple of Black icebreakers for you. I love the fact that we both are from Chicago. He grew up in Chicagoland, and I moved here when I was real young. So I love it when people are my age, and because they get some of my Black icebreakers. And so I just have a couple. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. But here's my first one. Tony, have you ever heard people use the phrase making groceries while you're growing up? Making
groceries. I know what it means, but no, I haven't heard them say that.
Older folks, instead of saying I'm going grocery shopping, they would say, "This I'm about to go. It's Tuesday. I'm about to go make groceries. Do you need anything from the store?"
I like that. I think I'm gonna use that.
You know, my aunt used to say that. Well, it's payday. My check came in, so I'm about to go make groceries. But older people would say that.
I like that. I think that's a new thing. I think you're just pulling one over on me right
now. No. Google it. I got you. Listen, let me ask. That's some Black Google. Listen, growing up, did you know anyone who dipped snuff?
Oh, man, I knew a bunch of people who dipped snuff.
Were they female?
I knew some females that dipped snuff. I knew guys dipped some serious snuff, though.
Oh, my goodness.
I mean, they get the little can.
Do you remember the names of any of the cans?
Oh, man, if you said them out loud, I could see it in my mind, but I can't.
Was it Bumble? Somebody told me something about Bumblebee.
Oh, there was another one I'm trying to think of.
Do white people dip snuff, Jeremy?
Yes.
Okay,
You
especially
get a
baseball
little
players.
can and you just spit off in there.
Yes,
Oh,
yes.
that was some nasty stuff, man. I have to
That's
tell you.
I remember people
So
talking about
nasty.
that, like, oh, she nasty. She dipped snuff. That old woman on that porch dipping snuff. That old man spitting in that can.
You know, then they talk about you because you smoke cigarettes. Why are you smoking cigarettes?
And you
Just
dipping
the
snuff.
snuff.
So is that what people had like in their bottom lip? Was that the
yeah.
snuff?
Yeah, or maybe it was a tumor
Tobacco.
or something. I don't know. It was,
Oh, I'm sorry.
It was
I'm sorry if I did
nasty.
that.
It was nasty. I could say that.
You know, growing up in Chicago, do you remember deliveries from Home Juice Company?
Let me just tell you a story about that. My dad used to deliver the orange juice and the milk
he
in the,
didn't.
in,
No,
in,
he
the, in the
didn't.
glass jar, in the glass thing, the
and
gallon
what,
thing.
what did they have on both sides of the jar? Do you remember?
They had the little handles,
The little
man.
glass handles.
Yeah, they had the handles. I had this story, man, and I know we're gonna cut this out, but I have to tell you the
No,
story.
we're not.
See,
So
when
keep
I
it
was,
clean.
Now it's clean. It was the first time I got a whooping. You know what a whooping is, right?
Unfortunately.
So I was a young guy, and my dad had brought these big old milk jugs with the things on it, and the orange juice with the things on it. Put in the refrigerator, in the ice box. Not even in the refrigerator, in the ice box.
Oh, that's what the ice
I
box.
literally had ice in the,
The
top
Frigidaire?
of it. Yeah,
The Frigidaire.
refrigerator. So and they had this stoop on it, right at the bottom of the refrigerator. Well, I guess it was a motor under there. So I'm standing up on the thing as a young person. And looking in the back of the refrigerator, right? And somehow I grabbed a hold of something, and the refrigerator started falling
Oh, no.
back on me. And I got out of the way. I don't know how I did that, but I got out of the way, and all of the juice in the milk glass bottles crashed on the floor.
Oh, I bet you got 2 whoopings.
Man, I still feel it.
You still see social services. It was legal back in those days. It's a good thing that wasn't today because your parents would be doing some time. But
Hey,
your
I
dad.
broke it. I used to remember him coming, had his white suit on,
Yes,
a white
they did.
uniform on, bringing up the stuff up the stairs.
What color was the truck?
Oh, that's a good question.
I just saw it a second ago.
I cannot see the truck.
The top of it was orange.
Yeah, I know there was some orange involved in it.
And it seemed like the bottom was blue or green.
There was some orange. I remember the orange.
My favorite was papaya. My grandmom used to order papaya juice, and you get the papaya and you mix the grape. Lord have mercy.
So good. That sounds so good.
And you can only have a little bit because that juice was expensive.
That's expensive.
It probably cost like 85 cents for them bottles. But they would come and get the empty bottles off the back porch.
That's exactly
but
what
the,
used to
but
happen.
the
Yep.
but the juice man, I think that might mean something different now.
No,
But the
it
juice man would come in. The juice man would come and drop off, those juice things. But Home Juice Company. Oh my! I had a feeling
man.
you might know what that was.
Every week, Dad used to bring that stuff home and fill up the refrigerator.
It was like crack. That stuff was so good.
It was so good. It was so good. It was so good. When he stopped delivering, we had to drink powdered milk.
Oh my God, that's not a good trade-off, man.
I know it was a betrayal, but that's
Man.
okay. That's all right. That's all right.
Now, did your mother or grandmother, or maybe other disciplinarians in your family ever say, "Boy, go out there and get me a switch off that what,
Off that tree.
and do what, so I can do what with it?"
So I guess you don't want to hear what.
Yeah, I do say it.
So I can whip your ass.
Boy, go give me something to beat you with. They would say, we laugh at this. That came straight out of slavery. That shit came straight up out of slavery.
I know that's
Boy,
right.
go get me something to beat you with.
And
And you better not bring a small one because if it's too little,
Could send you back out there.
they send you back out because then they mad because now you're wasting their time.
Okay, so did they ever braid them? You ever got spankings with somebody braiding?
No, I
those?
didn't. No, because I never pulled the refrigerator down over me and broke a bunch of glasses.
No,
on
that
the
was with
floor.
the leather strap. I mean, you know how that goes. But
Oh my goodness.
No.
Oh my goodness.
no, it was serious. They used to braid these things, and they would say, and that was after becoming an adult, I thought about this. I'm like, that might have been the first time where I actually did something for somebody so they could hurt me.
Mm-hmm.
They sent me out to get something so I could get hurt.
They made you think about it.
I mean, it's like, wait a minute. I'm the one that's going out to find the instrument
Right, you work for
to
it, Mama.
bring back so she could hurt me. And I'm like, okay.
My mom did it just only one time. She thought that was cruel. Now she knew how to spank, so she could handle her business with a comb, a brush, a shoe.
Oh, yeah.
But I think when they want to make a statement, go get me something.
But see, the good news is that those didn't last as long. For us, it didn't last as long.
Okay.
Because when you say you're going to get a switch, okay, we know that there's a time frame, there's a parameters around the amount of time that you could get you could get spanked with a switch. If you had a shoe, I mean, that could go on for days.
I've never thought of it that way. That's very interesting. So there's something very redemptive about the switch.
I mean, it was all a part of the algorithm. You know what I mean?
The black algorithm. That's a good. Okay, I'm thinking that'll preach. Hey, if you hung out with your grandmother, older folks, did they watch stories?
Oh, Young and the Restless.
Oh my goodness! Now is that just a black thing? So
General Hospital.
I only have two mics, so let me just look to my white producers. Did you all ever refer to stories? Did your grandparents? Yeah. So yours did. They called them stories.
When I would go to my grandmother's when I was sick and she would watch me, my parents at work, I could watch cartoons all day, but when her stories came on, TV was hers.
Okay, so that's a cross-cultural thing.
It's a universal experience.
It's watching stories. Okay.
It's watching stories. I mean, they never called them soap operas.
Mm-mm. Or soaps.
No, soaps. No, it was the stories.
Yeah, you need to be quiet. Well, I got to let you go, Dolores, because my story is about to come on. I got to see what Erica's about to do. I got to see.
And Susan Lucci was in all of them. Every one of them.
And she lost all of the Emmys, the daytime Emmys on that too.
That's all right. My mom loved her.
Oh, my family did too. Man, I got one last question for you. Now, this might be just my own family thing. Mm-hmm. And so that's why I have to ask these questions. I don't know. But, because older people used to make these comments. I never knew what they meant. But I can remember if we were outside playing, like if the young ladies were playing jump rope or something, and they were picking up a baby in the neighborhood, a little kid in the neighborhood. If it was like a little girl, like 11 or 12, if the baby were as big as she was, if she sort of leaned over standing and the baby was on her hip, all folks would be like, "Get that baby up off your hip." And have you ever heard that?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, but
y'all never heard that? So I'm looking at my white whisperers, and they're telling me no, they've never heard that. Why do you think they said that? I have my ideas, but it was almost as if like they heard you outside cuss, like, "Get that baby off your hip."
I always assumed it meant that it was a what's the word that when you have a premonition about somebody having a baby. Mm-hmm. I always thought that get off your hip because that's a sign that you want this is happening to you. This is going to happen to you.
I think it was too. I think it was that, and I think, you look too comfortable holding that baby. But I mean, like, studio can't see me. I mean, you can't see me. But like some of those girls would be standing like this.
Seriously, and the baby
they'd be
was
so
bigger
little.
than them.
The baby was bigger than them, but they would have like a little baby. But you could play with the baby, throw the baby up in the air, drop the baby
off the hip.
But you better not get that baby on your hip. Because get that baby off your hip, not off your arm, not from around your neck, not from around your leg, off your hip. Lord, what our folks dealt with.
Well, I remember it. Thank you for that.
So then that's not just my family.
Nope.
All right, well, with that, Dr. Chambers, I'm going to pass the mic over to you, young man, and so you can have your way in asking questions, but I would love it if you'd maybe kick things off by maybe telling a short story about how we met.
Listen, thanks, Alex. I really appreciate Dr. Reverend G. I am so happy to be here, and I feel quite honored to be able to take the mic from you.
Yes.
And hopefully we could get into some serious stuff this afternoon. So listen, you started the story, and we actually talked a little bit about it, or a lot about it, when I was here for my previous time, but the thing that sticks in my mind is how I got here and how you connected with me because of my experience at Edgewood College. So as you mentioned before, I came here in 2016 from Toronto, moved to Madison and took a job at Edgewood College as one of the vice presidents. And over the course of a year, 2016, 2017, I ran into a whole bunch of crazy, mostly what I would consider racist activity on the part of leadership. And so much to the point where I just, I couldn't do it anymore. So in August of 2017, I had to resign, or I decided to resign. And consequently, or subsequently, the Cap Times picked up my story and published it and put me on the front cover of the newspaper. And I get this call from this guy named Alex G. Now, I'm new to the city. I don't know a whole lot of stuff.
Sure.
I don't know a whole lot of people. But I get this call from this guy named Alex G. and said, I'm doing this podcast, and I read this article. I got to meet you. And then so I showed up at the
radio station, right?
at the time.
Wart Radio. They gave me my start.
It was good. I enjoyed that a lot. So the thing that I remember the most, Alex, and the thing that I keep coming back to is when we first met, you said, I saw this picture on the front cover of the Cap Times and it looked like you smelled something that stunk. See, your nose was all up in the air. I mean, what was it that was stinking? I was like, I had to look at the picture several times. I'm like, I guess there was some sort of a metaphor.
That's right.
Because
campus.
the whole thing stunk. I mean, the whole thing stunk, but I didn't realize it was showing on my face.
Oh, it was in there, man.
And then subsequent to that, we had good conversations. We met for breakfast every once in a while. We chit-chatted, and I got to know you, and hopefully you got to know me a little bit better. There's still some other stuff that we probably got to cover, but I want to say that I appreciate, because you were one of the few people, I'd say one of the two people, who actually reached out to me after that paper, after Cap Times covered that, to express how you felt about it. I didn't get that from anybody else.
Wow.
White, black, brown. I mean, nobody mentioned anything to me at all. And I remember to the day that you were the first person that really wanted to talk to me about it. It was not a good time, but I appreciate you and I appreciate what you did, and I'll never forget it. I'm in total debt to you
That's my pleasure.
for reaching out. So that's my Alex G story for today. I'm sure there's a million other ones that we'll cover at a later time, but I wanted to say that in part to preface things by saying thank you, Alex. I appreciate it deeply.
Glad to do it, man.
Yeah. So listen, I think I told you recently that, I've known you for the years that I've been here, and I kept hearing about this justified anger article, right? And I've sent many of the people that I work with to the trainings, and bunch of them.
Sure.
And they talk about it, and their lives have been transformed. But I'd never read the article. So a few months ago, I said, okay, I better read the article. Man, I read the article. And I think I've read it like 6 or 7 times since then. In fact, this morning I read it twice.
You've read it more than I have.
No, I have to read it. And every time I read it, it reminds me of, a letter from Birmingham jail, but only on a local level, but in a very personal, much more personal level. But the impact, I think, has been quite broad across the city and perhaps across the state, and I would imagine well beyond. So let's talk a little bit about the impact of the Justified Anger article and what I like to call a movement, because I think it's much broader and bigger than the article. If you could discuss what prompted you to write this article, and what was the key message or messages that you were trying to get out as a result of the article? What were you trying to say?
Tony, after I experienced being pulled over by the police right in front of our front door of our church, while my associate pastor, Kevin, was already in the parking lot. So to be questioned at night coming here for a meeting, and to have Kevin in the parking lot before I arrived, and he wasn't suspected of anything, he wasn't questioned at all, and he was asked to corroborate my story. Man, it really pissed me off. And then what it awakened was a memory of being pulled over by the Blue Blanket, which was a strategy in the early 90s to cut down on drug dealing. And I was pulled over broad daylight in Park Bank, and those of you, it's 2 blocks from my church office. I was wearing a black suit, was going to take pictures for our church. It was before the website, so I was going to get pictures for brochures. And they told me that my activity fit the profile of a drug dealer. So when this happened a few years ago, it reminded me of what would happen to me in the early 90s, and I was livid. And so, and I think the other thing was I had experience at Downtown Rotary. Nothing against Rotary, but just a conversation someone had for thanking me for not being an angry black man. And I think when she thanked me for not being an angry black man, I realized just how angry and black I was. And so I had coffee with a friend of mine who used to work for Cap Times. And I said, I don't want to do an interview. I said, I need to talk about my experience. And he said, if you do this paper, they're not going to let you write it. If you do that paper, they're going to write it. But if you do the Cap Times, I know someone, they might actually let you pen it yourself. and put it in your own words. I hadn't really thought about that. I like the idea of just spouting off and hoping that the interviewer captures everything.
Yeah.
But the thought of putting it in my own words was daunting, but also very alluring, because even though the Cap Times had covered many stories on my work, they've never asked me to write anything. And so that was really different. And so my friend Phil put me in touch with Paul at Cap Times, and one thing led to another. And he said, I want you to write 3,000 words. I'm going to put some art with it. I'm going to put it on the front page. But I want you to talk about your experiences being Black here in Madison. But it was just, I think it was that proverbial straw that broke the camel's back that made me say, I want to tell people what Black life is like here. I'm at Downtown Rotary, one of the largest Rotaries in the country, hundreds of people in the audience. I'm talking about mass incarceration, the impact that this is taking on us. I'm talking about the work. I think I might have mentioned the work that I was doing for my dissertation about the impact of fatherlessness on Black men. And I found out the intersection of fatherlessness and mass incarceration. So this is very personal. My father spent a lot of time in prison. I'm processing this stuff. And the response is, thank you for not being an angry Black man. I just say, what about me makes you think I'm not angry? Then I started thinking, does she think I'm safe? That's not who I'm trying to be. So I think that made me say, I want to set the record straight.
What was it about you at that moment that you think she thought was okay to say that?
I wasn't jumping up and down on the podium.
Truth.
I was hitting them square between their eyes. But I remember what she said. She actually named someone who's a good friend of mine. She goes, I said, well, what would make you think I'm not angry? She says, well, I mean, you're not fucking angry like Kaleem Care. And I said, ma'am, I am fucking angry like Kaleem Care. And besides, Kaleem is a good friend of mine.
Truth.
And so, but then she started pitting me against a friend, someone I've known since he was an infant. I know his mother. I know his aunts. I know his grandmother. Where do you get off critiquing my speech, telling me I'm not Black, and then telling me I'm not angry, and then telling me who is angry, and you're now telling me I'm safe because I'm not like them? First of all, he's trying to advocate for our kids and your kids too. Mm-hmm. What gives you the right to write him off as angry? Has he threatened you or your kids or your life or your livelihood, or has he just challenged, your sense of white protection or white protectedness and supremacy? What's going on here? And I when I walked out of that place, Tony, I was so pissed. I've known Black people most of my life, Tony. It's so
well, you know yourself, so you had to have known some Black people all your life.
I was trying to see if y'all were listening. I have never known a Black person to walk up to a white person and say, thank you for not being an angry white person.
Never.
Thank you. We would never walk up to someone who's a keynote at something and say, thank you for not being a white supremacist, or thank you. I just have never heard anyone. And she said it with such a smug, congratulatory tone. And so I'm getting mad just thinking about it. But yeah, so that's what happened. I think when that pushed, and I just said, let me have I led people to think that I'm not angry? Am I a Neo Sambo? Am I Madison's poster boy for, step and fetch it? You start assessing yourself. Am I an Oreo? What's going on here? Why does she think she can say this to me? Because, man, if she had said that to the right person, or if the right people were standing around me, she would have gotten a good cussing out.
This would have been hurtful.
This would have been very hurtful.
Alex, I think about your article, and like I said, I've read it multiple times, and I've highlighted, and in fact, I have a copy right here that's all yellow and green, and
yeah, I love it,
and everything. And I mean, it'll be 10 years in December.
Yes,
this year that you wrote this. And two things keep coming to mind. In the article, you talk about all of your accomplishments and all that you have achieved up to that point, right? You had all the accolades, you had all the recognition, you've had the titles, the salutation, you had everything, pretty much.
Right.
An established leader, one of the longest standing leaders, faith leaders in the city, right? Why then? Why not before then? You have seen this stuff before. Right? What happened at that time 10 years ago?
I don't want to talk about it. Damn,
we are talking passing the mic, buddy. Come on now.
Because I thought I somehow had become transcendent. I thought because I was here and I delivered them newspapers, And I was a Cub Scout and a Weeblo, and I went to the schools and I hung out with the children of department chairs, UW-Madison, playing soccer, cross-country skied. I tried to play some tennis. I can ice skate. I was just a kid that just exuded what it meant to be Madisonian.
Right.
And so in my head, I wanted to model, if you keep your nose clean. I've even said to men in our programs who've been a part of the incarceration system, when they've told me about being pulled over and profiled, I'll ask, was your tailpipe loud? Was your light out? Was your music loud? And so when all of this stuff was happening, I felt embarrassed for all the times I didn't listen to the brothers who told me, no, it's just because I'm black. Like I had been led to believe that wasn't fully the case because it had never really happened to me. But when they said, we got a call that somebody was driving the wrong way down Fisher Street, I said, well, officer, I just came from Fisher Street. My mom lives there. I grew up in that house. It's a two-way street. What do you mean the wrong way down Fisher Street? Then he said, we're looking for a red car. I said, well, obviously you can see mine is black. So I did not drive the wrong way down Fisher Street. My car is not black, and we're still here talking. And so my friend Kevin gets out the car. He walks over to the police, and they start talking. I'm looking at him in my mirror. They're talking. I remember once being behind my wife when I was stopped, or she was stopped for speeding, on Whitney Way, and we were trying to rush to get to a meeting, and she got out of her car to go to the police car. The police officer yelled at her so much it's so loud that it scared her. Like I saw her visibly stop and shake, like something jumped from under her bed or her closet. Like it was so startling that she thought he was about to start doing something. This is way before some of the obvious brutality stuff. So how the hell are you gonna let Kevin get out his car in the dark? And you wouldn't let my wife, a woman, get out of her car just to walk up to your car. She'd never been stopped before. So she forgot, you're supposed to sit there and wait 10 and 2. She just thought, let me go talk to them and tell them I was rushing to a meeting. My husband and I were trying to get to. He yelled, get back in the car. And she jumped and shook. And I mean, it still hurts me to see how she physically responded to that. And so to know that I don't fit the description of what they're looking for, so it's almost like, well, what the hell? Let's keep digging. What are you doing here?
Right.
And so, yeah. I forgot what the question was, but
no. We're talking about why then, and what.
So that's why in that moment I sat there, and I needed to name drop because 3 police officers are part of our church. Right. By the time I name dropped the 3rd officer, I could see sort of this oh shit look in the officer's eyes, like I know those folks. They do go to church around here. Oh, they're like okay, okay, thank you. They weren't mean, but they were very suspicious of me. So I sat there. Noble Ray, a black police chief, was the chief at the time. I tried to call him because I had him in my phone. I got his voicemail, left a message. But the way I describe this, Tony, is as I sat there, it felt as if you remember like Addams Family, or anyway, these old shows or cartoons like with like mummies had this wrap on them. Yep. I literally felt, I don't know if I could say, I felt as if something was unraveling. I felt like somebody was taking a big ace bandage off my chest, and I no longer believed in the American dream. Like I sat there and felt that sense of innocence.
Right. It's
taken away. I no longer believed that I could be anything that I wanted to be because I came in contact with an attitude that was not nasty. It was not mean. They did not raise their voice. They were not demeaning in their tone, but they were in the interrogation. But also, I got scared because out of frustration, I said, well, if I don't belong here in this parking lot, why do I have these keys? And I reached in my armrest to get my keys. And the officer jumped, and I could see his flashlight like just jumping and splattering all over my car. And I thought, he's scared. Now I'm wondering what about me is frightening, and I'm scared because he's scared. And I think the fact that I could be pulled over by someone who is afraid of me, that's something I can't control because I didn't look menacing. I was in a pastoral role. I was in a pastoral moment. I was in a pastoral place. I wasn't at a bar, a restaurant, a store. I wasn't buying cigarettes or papers. I was walking into a prayer meeting.
Your prayer meeting.
My prayer meeting.
At your church.
Standing meeting I have on Saturday nights. I've had on Saturday nights for years, since before my daughter was born. She's 26. Every Saturday. And to feel all of that, that made me say, I think when the woman thanked me for not being angry, it unlocked those experiences that had just happened slightly prior to that.
Right.
And I just felt like I said, kind of told like we were kids. Somebody like you be outside and hey, don't tell nobody we're gonna throw rocks at this window. Don't tell nobody we're gonna do. Don't tell nobody that we're gonna take the teacher's chalk. And all of a sudden somebody says, "Ooh, I'm gonna tell. I'm gonna tell."
I'm telling.
I felt like I heard something inside say, "Ooh, I'm gonna tell," and that's why then, because honestly, I had allowed myself to be seduced socially to think that those rules didn't apply to me.
And that's not an uncommon experience. And I would imagine anybody who has achieved what you and I have achieved and walk in the world intentionally sometimes and unconsciously at other times, presenting ourselves as if we are acceptable, right? That we're non-threatening.
Right.
And sometimes it can be quite intentional. Sometimes it's not so intentional. The thing that you just explained, many have attributed this accumulation of these microaggressions, macroaggressions, direct hits, slights, have attributed many of our health disparities to those things. People have gotten cancer because of racism. Racism kills people. We know that to be true. It's a public health.
Right. The city of Madison and the mayor have, they've passed resolutions stating such.
This is it. We know this to be true. And what you just described was how it accumulates in your system, and your system sort of reflects it. And sometimes it gets to a point where you just cannot hold it in.
Right.
I mean, it cannot be held in. What you did was you cut it short of attacking. Mm-hmm. I mean, you still held the line as that really accomplished, really bright, really acceptable person, black person. Mm-hmm. Now, some police or some other might expect you to go over the top with this, so they can react in ways that they need to react. I'm not saying all police are that way, and I don't want anybody to get that impression because I have deep respect for some police.
Right.
But you held the line.
I did, but I got the more we talked, the angrier I got. That's why out of a sense of exasperation, I grabbed my keys the way I did. But the more it went on, I just thought, wait, did I do something wrong? I didn't do anything wrong. No. Why is this going on? Like, when you're in that surreal moment, you start thinking. I was thinking everything but this is because I'm black.
Really?
I'm thinking. I mean, honestly,
when they pulled me,
it did as the discussion progressed. When Kevin got out of his car,
right? Then you knew.
And then I looked in my rearview mirror, and they were talking like they were frat brothers.
Get up.
I mean, just how comfortable Kevin. And Kevin got out of his car to make sure that nothing went down with me. That's why he got out of my car. Kevin's my buddy to this day. He got out of his car to make sure. He said, "I want to make sure nothing crazy is going on." But when he later told me after they left that they asked him, "Was I really who I said I was?" That was the proverbial straw. Not just being pulled over, but I sat there watching Kevin working to diffuse the situation. And once he was doing that, the officer had the audacity to ask him if I was telling the truth, and never once asked, "What your ass doing here?" And Kevin was there when I pulled up. It was 4 cars. Kevin was car 1. 2 police officers followed me into the parking lot. So we were 2, 3, and 4. How could they not ask Kevin what he was doing there?
I think that's a rhetorical question, my brother. I'm sorry.
I'm
to
getting
put
mad
it that
thinking
way.
about it. I mean, it's been years, honestly, but as I began to think about that, and when you're blindsided because you don't believe that can happen, you quickly rationalize, or you try to rationalize, okay, they're just doing their job. When I was pulled over the first time by the blue blanket, and I said, I remember when they pulled me over, I let down my window and I said, "Can you tell me why you stopped me?" He put his hand out like this and he said, "I can't talk to you until after we run your plates." But you fast forward, another cop is talking to Kevin while they're running my plates. He would not even talk to me in broad daylight. He let Kevin get out of a dark car, which is newer than mine. Not that even matters, but a newer car than mine, walk up on him and then have a conversation with him while I'm sitting in the car quiet trying to figure out what's going on.
Can I acknowledge the level of my blood pressure is going up having this conversation?
Mine is too.
And my eyes are getting red.
Yes.
And my heart is beating fast.
I know what you mean.
This is not history. This is the contemporary life that we live.
Right.
This is the contemporary life that many of our young people live, and many folks who, you know what I'm grateful for in this story?
What's that?
Is that you found an ink pen. That you found a pen.
Too.
and that you put it down. Because what you did is that you gave voice to the experience that a lot of people have. You also challenged the city, who thought of itself very differently. You challenged the city to step up, recognize, and do something about this shit, right?
Right.
You challenged the city. Not only did you do that, you challenged other black leaders, other faith leaders to step it up. You know, that was brave. And had you not taken up the pen at that point in time, I'm not sure we'd be in the position that we're in right now, which I do want to ask you about.
Wow. Why support Black Like Me podcast? There are very few places where Black activists and innovators can listen to and hear someone so aptly and culturally appropriately voice their concerns and dreams and aspirations and fears and illnesses and cultural commonalities. Equally, there are so few places where concerned non-Black thinkers and feelers, readers and watchers, lovers of culture, stalwarts of racial justice and harmony can go to learn, lean in, and to be a quiet fly on the wall in Black spaces and experience personal, deep personal transformation through listening to honest Black people's truth. Black Like Me podcast is that for so many people in this nation and around the world. Now, while your financial support beginning at as little as $2 a month will get you access to pre-released information, updates, conversations, insights, and exclusive events, your support also affords us the opportunity to expand the quality and reach of our excellent programming in thoughtful and authentic ways to more and more people. And more importantly, white people need to stop trying to get free shit from Black people. All right, seriously, your financial support is a vote of confidence, and it's an enabler of vision and innovation. So why not click that link today and join the movement? I want to thank you in advance for your support and your partnership.
So thank you for that. Thank you
Thank
for that.
you.
I mean, I hate the fact that you had to sacrifice your sense of humanity at that moment in order to do that. But what came out of it was where we are right now and where you are right now. So let me just ask you, that incident or that moment or the article, how has it changed you, and how has it defined or not defined or shaped your leadership and your work up to this moment, 10 years later?
That's a great question. You said, how has it changed or how has it shaped? Did you ask both of those?
I want to say shape because change suggests that something went in a particular direction. I want to think that we're always evolving.
Sure.
Right. So it has some impact on who you are and how you do what you do as a leader.
I think it did a couple of things, and I'll try to hit the bullet points so that you can dig deeper on this if you like. I was known as a younger leader who led a church and created an exciting nonprofit. But I was not necessarily a leader in the NAACP movement, or I'm a member of Alpha Phi Alpha, but I never held any. Yeah, we both are. Hey,
my
06. I'm
man,
sitting
06, there
here
we
with my
go.
fraternity brother.
All right.
But I never had any positional, like, leadership positions. So when Paul Fanlin from Cap Times let me have that space, and let me just say, I've stated this before, but I think it's important for new listeners. Paul had no intention of letting me write a front page story. Paul and I become good friends.
All right.
Yeah, we can fight and sling it out and then say, now, who's picking up the tab today? And we getting together next month, right?
That's what I'm talking about.
And so, but we were talking, and I mentioned I remember having someone break into the church, and I called the police and described myself. I'm Black. My name is Alex G. I drive a black Acura. Here's my license plate. And I remember Paul had his arms folded. He was just sort of looking down. And when I said that, he looked at me and he said, wait, you describe yourself when you call the police? I said, yeah, don't you? He said, I have never described myself to the police. I said, well, if I didn't, I'm the only car there. I'm in a black car. I'm a black man. They're going to come to the church. Somebody broke in. I'm afraid they're going to torch it before the grand opening. I don't want you all. I didn't think they were going to arrest me, but they were going to be asking me so many questions while this fool is inside my church. I just wanted them to know who I was. So that when they come, I can say, I'm Alex G., the one who called. Go get him.
Right.
He looked at me and he said, I want you to write 3,000 words. I want to put it on the front cover. I want to put some artwork in. He was not planning on doing that. But I remember he just sort of looked up and said, you describe yourself when you call the police? Like that was almost like, you use a washcloth? You know?
We don't need to go back to that one.
He looked like, wait, he was like, what? And that was so different for him that he said, let's allow him to do this. So what happened, Tony, was up until then, most people were interviewed. This is Madison.
Right, right.
If black people can put some sentences together, the highest regard with which a white person can hold you is that you are very articulate. And then, well, shit, if you can write too. And so for me to pen it, for him to say this is justified anger, I didn't name it. He named it.
All right.
But by Alex G. That was very clear that I wrote it. I think the way it changed my leadership was that, what's this book about Vernon Jordan, who was an advisor to Clinton?
Right.
And he was in law school and working at some golf club or what's it called when horses jump over?
Equestrian.
Equestrian.
Yeah,
Like he was working at some polo camp.
Mm-hmm.
And one guy saw him like reading a book on his break. And he said, wait, doggy, Jordan can read. Like, Jordan's going to be an advisor to, Jordan's in law school. Jordan can, but the guy was shocked that he could read. And the man's in law school, but he's like, Jordan can read. In our community, if you can think, put your plan together, mobilize folks, and if you can write, they'll follow you. And so I emerged in, I didn't realize that at the time, but it emerged because I penned it. And so I couldn't say that someone twisted my words. I got to state what happened.
Okay.
I also laid out my Madisonian pedigree, delivering newspapers, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then I said, here's my experience. And just started speaking very honestly. It would be very difficult to refute what I said because you'd almost have to say I was lying. He's not from Madison. He didn't deliver a newspaper. Like I laid out by the way, I went to UW-Madison, you know. And so I learned to use all my skills of a lifelong black person in white space to communicate in a way that would allow white people to say, well, shit, he's one of us. And we'd be damned if we're going to let this happen to one of us.
Truth.
And in the moment, we were more Madisonian together than a black man and a white person. And so I wrote it in a way to make them connect to that Madisonian connection, and it worked. It worked because people heard it and they're angry. I have to be really honest. I had not necessarily come up through all of the black ranking channels of how you communicate. I went straight to the press, and the article, although it came out December 18th of that
13th,
year.
yeah.
13,
18th, somewhere there.
the 18th of 2013.
Right, that's what it was.
But it was the 11th most read story. It was first the most read story that week. So then they wrote an article about that. Then they came back and found out that was the 11th most read story of the entire year. So then they wanted to write a story about that. But it became the 11th most read story, and it only had 12 days to run. And it was one of the top 20 stories.
Why do you think that was?
It was a slow press day.
No, it wasn't, Alex. Come on now. Come on now. You touched the court and you revealed something. You pulled the cover off of it.
I think because I was raised in Pharaoh's household. And so I knew how Pharaoh spoke. And so I used the power of the pen and the press. I emoted without giving people the chance to call me ignorant. I was able to come out with the two-edged sword that got them going and coming. And I spoke it through my experiences, and you could not refute it. Check the records. The police officers had to have on record that they pulled someone over.
True, yeah.
Like we can name the date. It's on record. This woman actually did say this at Rotary. The police actually did pull me over. And it is very true that black people come in as an afterthought, and we don't get to set a table. We are decorations. And it was communicated in a way that it shed a light on aggressive, progressive attitudes here in Madison. Yeah. And I had the audacity, the balls to say, my problem right now is not with crazy, stringent, right-wing extremists. Deliver me from well-meaning white liberals who don't think I need to set the table. We'll set it for you. We know what you want. We know what you like to eat. We know where you like to sit. We know what you like to wear.
Yeah.
We know what you like for dessert. We got you on this. And I cast a light on that and said, all of this is problematic. And ignoring us and placating us is killing us. And I'm telling family secrets. This is what's happening to black people here in Madison, and y'all need to listen. And it just came in a way where the white community, listen, that is when, Eli, Jeremy, this is why it's hard for me to read emails. This is when I stopped reading emails. I couldn't keep up with them. I was writing people on Christmas break. Women in their 80s were coming to my office saying, I just want to see where his office is. I had neighbors who never spoken to me before, not much, saying, when we lived in upstate New York, Schenectady or Syracuse or somewhere, we were, we're Jewish, but we're part of the NAACP, and we knew we weren't finished. So when you said we're not there yet, I knew. We've been trying to tell the younger generation we have not arrived yet, that we're not done. I had these conversations with folks from across the country that was really crazy. It opened doors to talk more about these issues. I could remember going to the King celebration at the Rotunda, and I got to sit in the front seat. Like I was like hot stuff. Like I was invited to sit in places. I remember someone tapped me on the shoulder.
Yeah.
And I turned around and I said, hi. He said, Dr. G. I'm the state superintendent. My name is Tony Evers. He's our governor today. For those of you outside Wisconsin, he said, "I want you to know I read your article and I agree with what you said." I started getting calls from radio stations and TV stations. I started doing interviews with news outlets out of New York and Texas. It was really crazy. So all of that to say, the way that it affected my leadership was that it gave me a platform to speak that no one person, entity, or agency could give me. Because of the internet, it went viral.
Right.
I now have people all across the country wanting to talk to me about my experiences, and that shaped my leadership because I realized this is resonating with people, and I have something to say. I think where it hurt my leadership, and in the end, I hope that I'm still redeeming it, is that some of the white influencers, they don't call themselves that. They just call themselves public servants. But some of the white influencers said, well, then you do better. So then what do you suggest? I just wrote a letter. I felt like Jerry Maguire, like it's just a memo. So what do you recommend? So then people started coming to me and saying, well, then what do you think? Coming to my office, like heads of nonprofits.
So they expect you to fix it.
They wanted me to fix it. And if I didn't fix it right, with no money.
Nothing.
With no money,
and if
no
it didn't
money,
get fixed, it's your fault.
Everything's my fit. And so they were trying to get me to do. So I thought, okay, I got to fix it because I opened my big mouth. I got to fix it.
Right.
And I spent months trying to fix something that was not my problem to fix. That's how we started having those listening sessions with the black community.
Yep.
But I think what I learned in my leadership, and this happened through friends.
Right.
You can pinpoint things without letting the community make you then responsible for fixing them.
So there's so much there.
No, we're good. We're good for time.
I mean, there's so much.
You got me thinking, man.
Stuff going on in your story.
Can I say that those leaders resented me? Everyone asks how I get along with black leaders. The people who were pissed were two groups of people. White men who felt like I was challenging their livelihood and their position.
Right.
And white women who ran nonprofits. Because now this black man decides to wake up. Well, what did Adolf Caesar say in Color Purple? Oh, the dead has arisen. About Miss Seeley.
Oh, yeah.
They were like, because up until then, many of them were saying, we know what black people want. We understand what white men can do. We understand oppression. We'll tell you what black people want, what they say, what they think, what they like. So then when I started saying, no, that's not what we want. And I don't want you speaking for me because that's not true. People got pissed. People went to my funders, white women, or a white woman. I remember her running a major organization. Said, "Well, Alex is keeping the cards close to his vest, and we're trying to help. He's not letting us come in and help." So y'all knew this stuff was here. You got all white staff. Y'all know that this was a problem. I started speaking up. Everybody wants to show up and be part of the the celebration photo. Everybody wants to be on my homecoming float. I'm still trying to figure out what's going on. I'm still trying to make sure that what I'm saying is syncing up with black people.
Right,
Because I'm
right.
not going to let the media get me out in front of black people. So then now I'm ostracized, because then when the media comes after me, and they will, and they did, I don't then have black backing. I know that they're going to come after me. They got to come through my black entourage.
Everybody.
And so I had to sort of slow that up. But I had white men and white women pissed at me, and my issue was not with black leaders. At that time, it was with white leaders who felt like I was messing with their money.
And these are the progressive, liberal ones out there. Let me just ask you something.
Yeah, they are.
You ever been threatened? Your life ever been threatened because of this? Now, you don't have to get knee deep into that, because your
Hell
story.
yeah.
I'm thinking you never mentioned this, but in my mind is I know where we are, and I know it took a lot of courage to do what you did. And when you step out like that, you're going to get a response from all kind of corners of the universe. And I'm just curious if that happened to you, and how it sort of impacted how you do what you do, and who you became, and who you becoming.
It almost made me shut up, but yeah, I've had discussions with the FBI about protective measures.
You see, this is enough to stop people from doing the right thing.
Yeah.
This is enough to stop people. One of the last things I'll say about this, your story has reminded me that black folks who are accomplished are what I would call students of white folks, the best students of white folks. Mm-hmm. And I think your part of your story about your conversation with Paul, when he didn't understand why you had to describe
Right.
who you are, his astonishment that you had to do that also signals to me that I don't think other people are studying us the way we study them. And I don't think they have to, is the problem.
That's
right?
a good point.
We absolutely have to,
For survival.
within the systems that in which we exist, right? So your story sort of elevates that. We are students, and we're constant students day to day, because every system reminds us that in order for us to get anywhere, in order for us to maneuver in this space, we have to be studious. We have to be studious 24/7, how we wear, what we say, how we say what we say, where we show up, who we with, how we think, how we write, how we talk. We're all students.
Yes, we
We
are.
are students, right, of white folks. So thanks for the story, because that came out clear.
Tony, that is powerful. Let me just say this. Justified Anger, that article, was my dissertation on whiteness.
There it is.
That's where I showed
It was
everything.
the Magna
That's
Carta,
where I
let me
showed
tell you.
everything I studied about the white community, how I said it, how I wrote it. Paul asked me to write it in August.
Yeah.
I penned that and finished it December 11th. Sent it to him from LaGuardia. When I landed in New York for a meeting, sent it because I promised him I would get it to him. From like August, it was earlier than August. Let me see. No, the summer. It might have been more like June. But I worked on it for months. The other thing I'll say is, which is, this piece is really key. And I'm sorry, I'll say this quickly because I want you to get to your other questions. But because it's about picking up leadership, I started having listening sessions with the black community.
Oh, yeah.
But I also brought black people around me to help me. Laleda, Keitra, Kaleem, Noble, others, and we talked and we listened. Daryl Bazell, like black thinkers who appreciated my level of honesty and not seeking my own way. Here's where leadership, good training, and some spiritual grounding helped me. That moment, that season was so intoxicating. I'm doing interviews upstairs with like PBS National, like they're flying people out here. Like I'm showing up on Sunday mornings on, PBS NewsHour.
That's what I'm
With Hari. Like I'm sitting here having these discussions.
Oh, yeah.
And it's so I had people who helped me ground it. So help me be grounded so that I wouldn't run out there on my own. But I also had to use wisdom, because there are people coming to me out of the broader community saying, well, we're going to help to create a jail bonding, a jail release fund. I said, a fund for what? Because you got to go to jail. Like, you got to have these sit-ins, and so we're going to raise money so that you can have a legal fund for getting out of jail. So then I realized that's not my agenda. My mama hasn't raised me all these years, so I'm going to jail because you, as a white woman, think that this needs to be my agenda. So I had to really lean into the various groups of people trying to get me on their platforms. And so not leaning into the power alone, leaning deeply into the Black community, having listening sessions, and even stretching the limitations of how we, we think about leadership. I said I wanted to have a Black community meeting. Some Black leaders stopped becoming a part. They ceased to support me in Justified Anger because they said, you can't have a Black meeting. You can't just call Black. I said, I've had meetings with white people my whole life. It's called Rotary, Lions Club, Kiwanis, Optimist Club, Elks Club.
University of Wisconsin.
Come on now, the Royal Order of Water Buffaloes. He-Man Women Haters Club. No, they had stymie in it.
Come on now.
We were sitting in this basement. They said, oh, no, you can't do that. Kaleem Care and Laleda G said, yes, you can.
Yes.
They said, you can have a Black. 3 white folks came and didn't want to leave because they're like, some of them were elected officials. One was running for mayor. They're like, well, we need to be close to the people to know the issues. It was the first time that a mainstream Black person was not a part of a Black nationalist party or perceived as such, said publicly in newsletters or the social media, we're having a Black family meeting. And I didn't say Black folks meeting. I didn't have a Black fist on it. I said a Black family meeting. Man, we broke up into like 8 different groups. We had moderators. We had questions. What do you need to see? What do you need to do? Some of that stuff became part of the Our Madison plan. Some of the things that we said in that space actually happened in Madison, not through us, but because we voiced that it needed to happen, it started happening in other places. We're not responsible for it happening, but we created a place, the space for Black people to dream. But the white influencers who showed up would not leave the building. I had to go and have a special allies meeting in my office because I didn't want to say, get out of here. And then after we finished the meeting, one of the gentlemen said, I think he wants us to leave. The 2 women still stood outside the meeting door where the Black people were meeting. And as soon as the door opened, they made a beeline inside. What were you talking about? What were you doing? And so it was the first time, in my opinion, that we just call for a Black family. Let's talk about what we see. What do we need to do? What needs to happen? What's going on? So one of the things that really helped my leadership is that I leaned deeply into listening to the Black community, not running off on my own. Some of that information, you fast forward 10 years, has shaped the planning for the Center for Black Excellence and Culture. These are like 700 folks that we talked to over the course of the years. It gave me a deep connection with some of those folks. And then it got the attention of other funders around the country who were not from Madison, private foundations, who started supporting what we're doing. And so because I got outside support, I could challenge the systems that would normally pull money because they fund a lot of nonprofits. And so they can tell us, go sit down somewhere and shut up. You know, like the old folks used to say when you're talking to me, boy, shut up, go sit down somewhere and shut up. They couldn't say that to me because I would just opt to not apply for certain money. Like I'm not going after the money. I would get calls and say, Alex, you're not in the funding cycle. Did you miss the application? I said, no, we just decided at this point not to go after the money. But I was getting resources from outside. And so it bolstered my voice. It gave me a chance to be more bold and not back off. Right. And even when some of the white influencers, and when I say influencers, I mean people who write checks and designate organizations to get money, started asking me, so when are you going to change the name? Our donors, like, okay, they're one of my donors. They're a philanthropic organization. Right. Our donors, the people who give us money to give you, want me to ask you when you're going to start changing, when you're going to change the name from Justified Anger to Justified Action or Justified Apathy or Justified Acquiescence or something else that starts with an A. Those were the conversations I was having in the back rooms. And I got a chance to look them straight in their eyes and like, I'm not changing the name. You all are more concerned by the fact that my town hall meeting said in red letters, Justified Anger, and that the D in Justified and the anger look like danger. Yep. Y'all are acting like, as a pastor, I'm calling for a Nat Turner kind of revolt. Are y'all serious that I'm doing this? And you're more concerned about this than the fact our Black infant mortality rate has rivaled that of third world countries at war? Are y'all shitting me? You want to talk to me about my red lettering and that you feel like I'm calling something out. And we are one of the worst places to live in this country. And so that level of pushback and disdain and to be able to be a bold black man who had diversified his funding and my supporters.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went a step further with the history class. I brought non-black people around me. And so I still had the chocolate inner layer, but I had my Asian Americans, Latino, multiracial, Native American, every group of every hue surrounding us, having this beautiful swirl, thereby insulating myself
Yes.
so that people couldn't silence me because there were people who were very upset. I was told to no longer talk to national media. A meeting was called. Person still in leadership in this community. Hold on, let me take a swig because this is making me mad.
I'm gonna throw a question in here, and I don't want you to answer it, but I want you to think about it.
Right.
What's the price you paid for all of this? Don't answer it. Just keep
I
talking.
got to think about it.
No, just keep rolling.
Tony, when they call this meeting, the county exec was there, the mayor was there, the head of United Way, head of Boys and Girls Club, the head of Urban League, the police chief, elected officials, university representative, head of United Way. If a bomb dropped in that meeting, 3/4 of Madison's civic leaders would have been gone. The agenda was the fact that me and another black leader had been asked by national NBC or somebody to speak about what was happening in Madison. By this time, Tony Robinson had been killed by police officers, and so national people were coming directly to us. They weren't coming through, nothing against these entities, but they were not coming through the mayor's office, the county executive,
Right.
United Ways, Chamber of Commerce. They were coming directly to us.
Right.
The meeting was messaging. It was not how we got here, how we get away from here. It was not how do we fix this? How long has this been going on? No one stood up and said, how the hell did this happen on our watch? We are all responsible for this shit that we're in. The discussion was, Alex and you other people,
Don't say
it is our job to speak about the image of Madison. Right now it's untainted and you are tainting it. And I said, it sounds to me like you telling me to sit down and go, shut up and go sit down somewhere. I'm not shutting up. I'm not going to sit down. I'm a grown-ass man. You're not going to sit up here in front of all these peers and what? Think you're going to punk me? And like, I'm going to say, they call me.
Truth.
NBC call. I got people in Texas saying, dude, I saw you on our news in the morning. I had somebody call me from New York and say, okay, can you go to Willie Street and stand here? There's going to be a truck. There's a guy named Albert. So I'm going, I got an ear set on. Like, I don't even know how this works. A red light comes on the camera. Like, all right, talk. They're like, okay, we're at in New York, and we're looking at Reverend Dr. Alex G. in Madison, Wisconsin. He's standing down near the site of where Tony Robinson had been shot by a police officer, Matt Kinney. Reverend G, what are you? And I'm standing here talking to a camera to New York live in real time. The mayor, county executive, none of these other organizations were there. And again, what happened with my leadership is that it passed by the gatekeepers, the black and the white, the civic, the governmental, the business. It bypassed all of them, and I'm having these conversations, and so that shaped. I don't talk about that part very often, but that shaped my sense of communication, which is why I want to have a podcast, which is why I want to blog, which I don't do very much. I do because I realize the power of the mic and the power of influence.
Absolutely.
But I learned that the hard way. I guess what I lost is I realized for a community that wants truth and equity, that when someone says we're not there and here's what it takes to get there, we're not always embraced. So the backroom discussions, the name calling, what black people came and told me, trusted black people told me, the meetings I was kept out of, the meetings I was blackballed from, the meetings that I was invited to, very influential meetings. And then the office was rescinded. I had black people coming and telling me this is the conversation. They said, no, we don't want G in here. So the cost was people taking a swipe at my reputation and somehow saying he's just in it for himself. He has nothing really to add. He's got an agenda, and not listening to the fact that what we talked about in 2013 became the way of the world.
All over.
All over.
So I guess I have to say again, thank you.
Man.
And I'm sure we're not over. Okay.
Thank you.
I'm going to run through a couple of more questions.
Please
but
do.
I have
Answer
at
them
least
quickly.
like another 2 or 3 days worth of discussion.
We're going to have you back, brother.
No, we got to come back. So listen, I'm going to change it up just a little bit, but not too much. You and I did an interview for a class that I teach.
Oh, sure.
Right. I teach this class, I co-teach a class on the art and science of human flourishing.
Right.
And I asked you to have a conversation with me about gratitude. I know we've been talking about some of the weirdness that goes on with people and their fears,
Right.
and some of the issues that they have, and some of their perceptions about the world and how you address them. And I could feel the energy. I mean, my eyes are getting red, and like I said, my
happening
heart
again.
my heart is beating, and it's almost PTSD, for sure.
Right.
In all of that, you were able to talk about gratitude and the importance of gratitude and how you live your life. Two of the things that stood out for me when you talked about gratitude, you say gratitude is a discipline. You said it requires patience. We can't live in an instant world where we expect to get things right away. We have to be
Right.
patient and look at how a seed grows into a flower, how it flourishes,
Right.
as you used it. And that was a great twist of words right there. I appreciated it. You also said that gratitude takes you out of the center of the universe, and it becomes a part of a whole. In fact, the quote that you had at the end of Justified Anger was from Andy Crouch,
Right.
in his book Playing God, Redeem the Gift of Power, which I just took off my refrigerator because it's
Wow.
right on my refrigerator. You said true power is creating space in which others may flourish, not falter. And when you talked about it taking you out of the center, what does gratitude mean to you as somebody who brings others together, that looks at you not being in the center of the universe or not being the universe?
Sure. I'm a person who has probably felt ultra responsible my whole life.
Truth.
But when I'm grateful, when I pause to say I'm thankful for something, I'm not, sort of soft punching my own chin saying, "Attaboy, you really did that." I'm pausing and I'm realizing I'm standing on the shoulders of others. I'm standing elbow to elbow, shoulder to shoulder with others. Others are watching me, generations to come, generations that went before me. And so by being grateful for all that has happened in order to allow me to have this moment and experience this moment is very deeply felt. A commitment that I've made to myself is to really let the first words out of my mouth every morning be thank you. Just to say thank you for the day, for the life, for the opportunity, no matter how I'm feeling. There are many who would love to walk in my shoes, have what I have who I have what I'm about to have, what I'm about to do. And for me to lose all of that in anxiety, and I understand anxiety is real, but for me to give into it and lean into it as if I somehow have to make these things a reality is to make myself center. And so when I say thank you, I'm also acknowledging not only have I not gotten myself to this point, I will not get myself to the next step from this point. And so I'm just grateful for all the things that are working together to enable me to make an impact on this world. I'm grateful for the mistakes I've made, for the steps I've made. And so for me, that's how it gets me out of the center of things. And even saying thank you when things don't work well.
Right.
And not thinking that, what's the purpose of life if I don't get what I want? You got to be patient. You got to walk before you run. So for me, it puts life in perspective. But I've stated that gratitude is its own reward. That even if you don't get what you think you deserve, the space wherein you're able to be grateful is a gift in itself. That reprieve from the craziness that's going on within and without, to say, I'm grateful. I'm grateful for this moment. I'm grateful that I can feel. I'm grateful that this person cares enough to check me on what they said. I just found that gratitude is its own reward.
Well, that comes across very clearly. Can you say that gratitude and a sense of thankfulness and thoughtfulness help you get through some of the most difficult leadership challenges you had?
Eventually. But yes, it does, because it makes you ask the hard questions. What did I learn? And one of the things I remember, and this is a pastor from my childhood said, he told me, he said, you know what? He told the whole, congregation, but I remembered it. And I was a teenager. He said, if everyone likes you, something's wrong. And my goal was to be liked by everyone. That was my goal as a kid, to be liked by everyone.
I hear you.
And he said, so that burst that bubble. But the other thing he said was, listen to the stuff that makes you mad. Like if someone says something, and I don't mean something that's offensive, but if someone just says something and all of a sudden you find yourself getting defensive, listen to that. Because there's a reason why you're having that response. It doesn't mean that it's right or that it's true. Maybe that it used to be true, or maybe you're exhibiting that if you don't mean that. So in addition to being thankful, and in addition to not worrying about everybody liking me, and leaning into the things that seem to really frustrate me, like why do I need people to like me so much?
Yeah.
But let's go back to the lack of affirmation of my father who wasn't in my life. Well, then let's fix that. Then I don't have to try to please everybody, because if I try to please everyone, then they can lure me with money and power and prestige and position. So if I close that door, then I can be manipulated. Right. So just learning to use those tools to understand where I am in the world emotionally in any given moment helps me to then navigate that world. And so those things have really helped me. So gratitude makes me unpack those things. Okay, so why did that make me angry? Okay, why was that so important? Why was it so important that I get that affirmation? What's going on with me? And it allows me to do a gut check. So it's not just this willy-nilly sort of Pollyanna, like, oh, I'm just happy today, zippity-doo-dah. It's not like that, but it is a moment of reflection and understanding that this is a marathon and not a sprint, but it takes my wit, it takes grit, it takes my friends, it takes my faith, it takes all the things that I've learned, and that's all got to continue to work together. And if I let competitiveness and just being ungrateful and being egotistical, it all begins to erode at my soul. Gratitude allows me to stay intact so that I can be used in a way that's useful to the community and not purchasable.
Alex, I really appreciate your vulnerability on these questions.
Well, thank you.
For sure, because it's not easy, and it's rare for leaders, particularly what we frame as transformative leaders, to be that vulnerable and still be as strong as you are. So appreciate that.
I appreciate that.
So listen, I know the clock is winding down, but I will feel terrible if we get out of this discussion without you saying a word about the Center for Black Excellence in Culture. I would feel like there was a major loss, because this is a piece of magic that I have to say it's a unicorn in the universe, and I think it has the potential to transform this space. And by transforming this space, I think it could be used as a model to transform spaces like this. So if you wouldn't mind talking about, your vision and the work to date, and how your leadership has sort of impacted the evolution of the Center for Black Excellence in Culture.
Certainly. We'll put a link in the notes. And throughout this season, I've been talking about it a little bit, so people will have had a chance to listen to it. But it's an incredible project that's building space here in South Madison that gives us a chance to put Black excellence on display. It's a community where there's not a lot of cultural affirmation, sense of transcendence, the way art, culture speaks to us. And we're wanting to stop the Black brain drain, and we're wanting to stop the premature deaths of Black people that's really attributed to some of the these social determinants of health that are due to microaggressions and social isolation. So this will be a place, Black space, where innovation, plays, creativity, Black community-based research, sense of Black wellness, gathering and coming together, storytelling, maker space will allow Black people to tell our story, to celebrate our story, and share it with the broader community in a way that allows us to keep our souls intact. When there's space where Black people can be unapologetically Black and authentic and creative and innovative, we continue to change the world. The center is going to be a place where my friend Professor Clark Pujara said, we were not going to focus on slavery, because slavery is not the basis of Black history. It's an interruption in Black history. And so it's a place where we tell the story of perseverance and the strength and the thriving of the African diaspora. So the center will be a place where the art, film festivals, book festivals, storytelling, comics, but it'll be a place where Black people from Africa, from the Caribbean, folks who identify as Afro-Latino and African Americans, and our stories of influencing Wisconsin and the region will be told. And we'll bring kids in from all over the state to learn about these positive contributions. So this will be our space where we get to then inform and inspire the broader community to understand how their lives have been already touched by Black people. It's not to come and explore Black people, but it's a chance to come and learn that many of the things that they have enjoyed have been somehow created by folks from the African diaspora. This is a major undertaking. We've already raised $23 million toward our $36 million goal. It's going to become a national model of what happens when we lead with excellence and not with social service programs and focusing on what's broken.
Right.
I'm really excited and proud to be leading this, and I want anyone who's listening to click the link and to become a part of what we're doing, to support what we're doing.
Can I just put an emphasis on the support part? We're still in the hunt.
That's right.
We're still looking for support. So please.
Come on, we need you. We can use you.
It's as good for you as it is for us.
Exactly.
Let's put it that
Definitely.
way. So
Man.
listen, Alex, I know, again, we're winding down, and I'm going to end it by asking you the question that I always ask myself as I get older in the world. If I had some advice for my 13-year-old self, knowing what I know now, my 13-year-old self, and it has to be really pithy and short in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
Give me the advice that you would give to the 13-year-old Alex.
Don't doubt your 13-year-old self.
There it is, folks.
Stuff I'm doing today, I heard and dreamed when I was 13. Don't doubt your 13-year-old self, and stay plugged into your source that's fueling you for that. That's what I would say.
There it is. Remind yourself of that. And remind everybody else of that. Thank you so much for this discussion. And we have so much else to talk about, but I want to thank you. I want to thank you for seeing me and hearing me and allowing me to have this conversation with you. Hopefully we'll have another one.
We will.
And there it is. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. See, folks, I told you today's episode was no exception. Dr. Anthony, we call him Tony Chambers, was in the studios today. And this has just been powerful. You know, after these interviews, I need to just sit for a little bit and just let the reflection that I've just experienced just really settle, because it takes me back to a place where I had strong feelings or doubts or questions or assertions. And this is a gift to be able to bring them back up and to think about how they've grown into fruition, how they shaped culture and changed things. So listen, folks, lean in, learn, be transformed and impacted by what you're hearing. Think of people who need to hear this, who need to be inspired by this. Not just your black friends who need to hear another black person or black people talk about this, but to your non-black friends who need to listen in on how black people see the world. You can write a review. You can certainly repost this on social media, and you can also click the link to become one of our Patreon supporters. But we need you to do something. Don't just listen to what's going on. Be a part of the change that we all long to have and see in this world. Man, season 8 is fire, and we're going to continue passing the mic. Thank you so much for your support, from our whole team who makes all of this happen every week. Thank you.
Black like me. Black like me.
You know, the benefit of being around for 8 seasons is that people constantly stop me and tell me how much they love the show, and they even give me ideas and suggestions about black icebreakers. But you know, I couldn't have pulled this off alone. So let me take a moment so that I can acknowledge and thank my crew. Engineers and producers, Jeremy and Eli. Also a member of my creative team is Jakisha. The music was produced by Corey Saffold, and Marcus Fleming is on vocals. And of course, you, our Patreon supporters, and all of our listeners. Thank you. To everyone who listens to this podcast and you decide to share it with someone who needs it, to everyone who listens and then reposts it on your own social media accounts, to everyone who hears something that moves them to act differently, act better, and to everyone who leans in to understand Black life more honestly, thank you.